In Lakesh and Veritas, everyone, we're sending you the frequencies of oneness and truth with honor, respect, and gratitude. We welcome you to Of the Sun's weekly Suncast podcast, where we cover evolutionary topics focused on expanding ourselves and humanity into becoming the frequency of truth and shifting our consciousness into seeing through the lenses of oneness. We are coming live all the way from one mind. We have Lao Tzu of the Sun, who's the guiding force and architect for the vibrant organism of the sun, who provides of the Sunners wisdom, guidance, so they can find the truth and be free. I am Tavares of the Sun, certified instructor and practitioner of the Sun modalities, and creative director behind Of the Sun's artwork, programs, and sessions. So I greet you, Lao Tzu, and everyone else in Lakesh and Veritas.
In Lakesh and Veritas, and we're so happy to have you here today. We are welcoming Lauren Corneal, who is an expert in flowers and has been with Up the Sun for a long time, learning how to become a communicator with the consciousness of flowers. So today we welcome the consciousness of flowers. And the second part of our podcast will be with the consciousness. And the topic will be about the divine feminine. We have invited not only Lauren here, but we've invited the consciousness of the divine feminine, the consciousness of the flowers to be with us. If you are listening, we encourage you to reach in to have the experience and feel what is going on here. This will be in this podcast always. So we'll begin by calling for the truth. Shall we? Call for the truth. Shall we call for the frequency of truth? Shall we call that we may see the truth? With every place we look, that we see truth, or we are able to interpret and understand what is true. Shall we call that we may hear truth? In everything we listen to, we can hear the truth of what is really being said. And shall we call that we have the courage to speak the truth into our world, to bring us back to truth? Call for the frequency of truth to come forward and stand before us in our world. So we hope that everyone will do this and commit to being, seeing, hearing, and doing truth. So today, Lauren comes to us with a wonderful message from the flowers as relates to our ongoing topic of the divine feminine. So last week we spoke about the bees. So this is about the flowers and the bees. This is a joint operation here. And we welcome you, Lauren. Thank you for coming in Lakesh and Veritas, Lauren.
And Lakesh and Veritas, with honor, respect, and gratitude. I am so grateful and excited to be here in the presence of you both and the flowers and the divine feminine. Oh, it is such an honor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We know that you have been in communication and working with flowers for many years, and you're a professional florist, and we'd like to acknowledge your company. Would you tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, the name of your company, and how they should be able to reach you?
Absolutely, absolutely. My company name is Andree. Andree, that is me, my middle name, Andree and Elle. With that, they are able, anyone that's interested in reaching out to me can find me on social media. I have an Instagram account right now, which showcases some beautiful photographs of the flowers that I've been able to work with. The handle is just the @ Elle Andree Florals. So you're able to access me that way. And yes, I encourage everyone to do so if you're interested in seeing the beauty the flowers have to share with us.
We're going to spell that for you.
Yes, and for anyone listening who has interest in checking Elle Andree out, we'll have all the contact info in the description below.
And so we know that you come to us today, and we're excited to hear what the flowers have to say. Are you ready?
I am, yes. Thank you. Enlekeshin Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. In the past, I often found myself speechless when standing in the presence of a flower. At that time, words were not needed for me to experience the energy that was around me. I could have what felt like the greatest conversation in the world without saying any words at all. I could feel myself becoming lighter, happier, more expressive. I would dance around with them in an abundance of joy. My heart felt their love and respect. I was living life alive when around them. I knew I was standing in the presence of truth and beauty, both of which represent the principles of the divine feminine. The question that entered into my experience was, if I could feel all this without having a conversation, what would my experience be if I actually did speak with a flower? What were they trying to tell me for so many years? What would I learn and how would I blossom if I became fully engaged? I asked the flowers, how are they connected to the divine feminine and what would they like to share with humanity at this time? Their response to me was, we are a physical representation of the divine feminine. We are the offspring born of Mother Earth, the symbol of perfect femininity. Our seed is rooted and nurtured deep within the womb of her soil, designed to bloom as the fruit of her labor. We are fed by the fire of Father Sun, used as the fuel to inform us and generate our growth. Our existence is simple. The divine feminine is our existence. We are created by the polarities of both masculine and feminine. The majority of us contain the physical anatomies of both male and female. Our stems are linear, growing up to the sun, representing the masculine influence within our architecture. Our petals delicately unfold, revealing layers of color and fragrance, their curvature representing the female counterpart. We are perfectly balanced in creation by divine design. We start as seed, presenting through the sacred geometric language of the circle, a perfect form, in perfect symmetry, no beginning and no end. The power of the circle is important to our growth and development. It feeds us through the sun, which is the nucleus to all life forms. Each droplet of water we drink sustains life. We are planted in and supported by earth. All are circular and critical to our survival. The circle is us and surrounds us, reflecting continuous balance and equality. We have not been recognized for our purpose. Our presence has been increasingly eliminated by humans. Our light has been diminished. We are here to be celebrated, as we are the solution you are seeking. We shift the energy, restoring balance by bringing forward the divine feminine, assisting with the removal of the toxification that has inhabited planet Earth. The suffering we clear and endure is not created by our species. As more of us are planted, we naturally, by design, produce what is needed to bring back physical and spiritual balance on Earth at this time. Plant us circular in groups, as our healing power is amplified this way. We aid in the restoration of proper order and balance with the divine feminine, as it is defined within universal law. It is within our natural genetic composition to do so. It is all we know to do. I then asked the flowers for clarity on how we can work together with them. And their response was, difficult times are upon all forms of life residing on Earth. The invasion of darkness we experience has come to take life from those who will allow it, those electively living in lower vibrations, calling forth negative. The air is heavy with the emotional infestations brought on by the suffering of those who dwell on Earth's surface. We feel this and we clear this as we aid in the relief of pain from emotional grief infecting you and our shared planet. You promote the healing of Earth by supporting us, by supporting life with the proper respect for life. Our integral relationship with you is one in simplicity. As you tend to us, we become interconnected through the heartbeat of Earth, transfusing breath of life from us to you. Spend more time with us. We initiate the restoration of self to strengthen your roots. Plant yourself firmly in the truth of who you are for self-survival. Your gratitude for us is what strengthens our connection to you. We purely and simply radiate love, reflecting this upon those who choose to engage with us. Your reverence and respect for our realm is received and reflected upon you, amplified, enough to change any moment's trajectory. Acknowledge us, speak to us, ask us to assist you. We will support you. Stay in gratitude for what we do to serve you, as our magic will enlighten you, bringing forth the inspiration needed to rise above the plague you find yourselves living in. Remember, like you, we are beings of intelligence here to assist you. This is elle. Keep us close to you, as we are protectors, surrounding you and your sacred space with what your hearts need to sustain elevated life during this tumultuous time. I sat in stillness with the proper reverence and respect upon receiving the information brought forth by the consciousness of flowers. I was being healed as I was being informed. As I sat there in gratitude, the sun came through my window, illuminating the right side of my body, while the left side remained neutral. I was experiencing, through my mind's eye, the perfect balance of light and dark, warmth and cold, sun and earth, masculine and feminine. Nature was showing me truth in balance. Now I talk directly to the flowers. I choose to fully engage with them. I have the clarity needed to understand deeply that they are beings of intelligence here to heal us. It is with honor, respect, and gratitude to all forms of life, to the divine feminine, to the consciousness of flowers, that I may be a vessel to share this experience. Elle and Veritas, with honor, respect, and gratitude.
Thank you, Lauren. It has, we have waited a long time to hear from the flowers. We're so glad that you have come forward. Do you want to share with us a little bit about how this process of you being able to communicate has taken place? Do you have anything you want to share on that note?
Yes, absolutely. As I had shared before, I never sat down deep in conversation with a flower. I would love a flower. I would look at a flower. I would feel great. I would feel better. But I never sat down and asked the flower directly, do you have something you want to say to me? I just always said, I love you. Thank you. And I would dance around with them and feel great. And it was almost as if every moment and every experience I had with a flower, they were trying to say, ask us a question, talk to us. We have something to say to you. But I just never did that. And through the teachings from you, Laota, and of the sun and the encouragement of you and the flowers, I did one day. And of course, there was so much that needed to come forward, so much that these flowers have been wanting to share with us for so long. They are our ally. They are our biggest cheerleaders. They are here to support us, literally in our own backyard, surrounding us in every way, shape, and form. They express themselves as they shared with us through the circle, which is so interconnected with the being of us as a human, but the divine feminine, balance, equality. We see that in that sacred geometric language in the flower of life. It starts as the circle and then ripples out into more circles, and more, into infinity, creating balance, symmetry, equality, perfection, everything that represents a flower, the divine feminine, us as humanity. We all start in the same form. And it was so special for me to be able to be in the presence of greatness, to witness what the healing is, the power that a flower can bring to us. And we are enlightened and healed by their simple presence. It was very special, very magical, transforming for me in my life so that I could see I need balance. And that is something that I need to focus on to make myself stronger and stand in truth, to have the respect for myself, the love for myself that I was imbalanced in. And so I am in great gratitude to the flowers for showing me personally how to heal through them and through the divine feminine.
We thank you so much. This is, in fact, the way. The way to balance is through honor, respect, and gratitude. And so we thank you so much for bringing this forward. Did you have anything, Tavares?
Yes. Outside of the sacred geometry, because of course I'm in love with that aspect of the communication. Well, first, thank you, Lauren, for bringing this forth, as well as the consciousness of the flowers, making this known to humanity. What really stood out was this line where you said, I was being healed while being informed, and I'm thinking, yeah, how many people have flowers in their house or plants where, just waiting to engage or waiting to give more to them than just being beautiful decor? That there's so much more than that. Do you have any recommendations to people who have plants or flowers in their home to open themselves up to this idea? Because I feel like people are hearing things, but they may be in doubt.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful you brought that forward, because it is true. To stand in the presence of a flower, sometimes you don't need to say anything because you are being healed, because you are in the presence of greatness. But to actually open up and go deeper, as we are taught, to go deeper, ask more questions, ask a simple question to the flower. What can you do to help me? What can I do to help you? To be in that gratitude and sit down and be still and listen. It will come through. It's so special. And like I said before, in the past, I would just stand there. And I've witnessed it so many times working in flower shops or surrounding myself in a garden, watching how people interact with flowers. Sometimes you don't need to say anything. But if you do choose to say something, you will receive everything in its fullest capacity. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience. Again, magical.
Indeed. Thank you.
Also, it is, we do know that in our world, even in our not necessarily apprehending all the truth of it, flowers are what we bring people on their birthdays, or if they're sick, or at weddings we celebrate it. We bring it at the experience of someone leaving the planet, someone coming into the planet.
The idea of life.
Yeah,
let's give them life.
let's give them some happiness, some joy, and some elevation. So humanity does get it to some extent. And I'm really glad you brought forward this construct that opens the door for me to talk about, which you have learned through the classes, that everything is conscious. Everything is conscious and has something to say. The flowers are conscious and they have something to say. And in our current world, this is not an understood idea. We think that things do not deserve our attention, or do not need for us to think of them. But last week, the bees gave us a wonderful message to stop, look, and listen. If we do that, with everything in anticipation of the fact that it truly is conscious, then we'll have an experience. I like to tell the story about the class I taught. I think I taught it in Chicago, or it was on, maybe it was live streamed in Chicago. You were in the class.
Yes, you were actually in Fort Myers,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was available to everyone worldwide.
And I think, Lauren, you provided the class with flowers. And I was teaching a class on the consciousness of flowers. This is years ago. I mean, I'm not sure how long ago, but probably 4 or 5 years ago. And we had flowers in where I was in Fort Myers, and you had provided flowers for each person in the class. Do you recall, Lauren?
I absolutely do. And I'm so grateful you brought this up because I can remember vividly the 3 colors and the 3 names of the flowers.
Mm.
There were red flowers and they were freedom. That's their name. And there were orange flowers and they were free spirit. And then there was also the yellow rose. They were all roses, by the way, as well. And it was high in yellow. Yes, high in yellow. So I was sitting there thinking high vibration. And it was so interesting because I asked before I went to pick up the flowers that the appropriate flowers present themselves that wanted to be presented in your talk. And here we have freedom, free spirit, and high vibes.
Sounds appropriate.
And I think it's interesting that after so much time, you remember the names of the flowers. Do you remember how the class went?
Yes.
Do you remember anything about the impact of the people? We're teaching them that these flowers are conscious. And we taught them how to speak to them. Do you remember any of that? Do you remember any of the flowers? Would you all comment on it?
Yes. I was sitting in Chicago. You were live in Florida, and you talked a little bit about the flowers and how to speak to them. And then you asked every participant to hold a flower, and we held them. And you asked us to ask them to heal us. And I remember my flower in particular, looking at it, closing my eyes, and as I asked to heal me, I just held it and I felt the power of the love from the flower move through me. And when I opened my eyes again to look at the flower, it had blossomed fuller, almost in the shape of a heart. As the petals were unfolding, they were healing me. They were doing what I asked them to do.
Yes.
It was so intelligent and brilliant and special. And I believe other people experienced something very similar, if not
and
even
eternal.
more.
Yes. It was all of that, but it has been eternally so. The flowers came to earth having been already that, but we noticed in a group 4 or 5 years ago.
So I'd like to share my experience. We had a significant turnout in person that day. So I didn't physically get a flower, but I did tune into the experience of people holding their flowers. So I'm of course, usually I am in manning the boards digitally in the conference. And I recall sitting like on the side of the room, connecting to everyone, connecting to their flowers. And I could feel the opening up inside of the people within the room, like this, like the joy, the love. I could see the surprise and the awe within them, seeing that, wow, this is really happening. I'm actually connecting to a flower at a deeper level. So that it was a very pleasant experience. Even though, and that, again, I didn't even hold it. I was just tuning into someone else holding their flower. And the frequency, I still caught the frequency.
And on the Fort Myers side, I had previously arranged for Lauren to acquire and speak with and choose appropriate flowers. On the Florida side, we had flowers, but I had not spoken to them. I had someone else to acquire the flowers. So when we're in the room and the class began, I looked over at the flowers, and the flowers, I was speaking to someone about, these are the flowers we're going to use. And one flower said to another, they're talking about us. Like, pay attention. They're talking to us. They're talking.
That's something that doesn't happen too often.
and so it was very amusing to me because I had not spoken previously. So I spoke to them at the moment and let them know we were honoring them and what we were doing. But they had arrived in the building before I got there, and I had not yet done that. So it was interesting to me that they are so accustomed to us ignoring them. They're so accustomed to us feeling like they are not, that they are just not, that the flowers themselves were surprised. And we were delighted to be able to make such a connection. And some of the people from that class, and you may be aware of this, Lauren, some of the people's flowers, they continued to ask the flowers to heal them, and the flowers had extended life cycles. Do you recall any of that?
I do.
These were
I
cut
do.
flowers.
They were cut. Yes. There was an experience someone had shared who had participated, that she kept her flowers with her, next to her every day, talking to them, giving them enlikesh, asking them to heal her. And for over 3 weeks, the flowers lasted, which is very unusual for cut flowers in my experience over the years. And that, yes, no, if we're saying numbers, 20 years now, oh my goodness. Wonderful 20 years. And she actually shared with me that one of the areas where there was a thorn on the stem, new sprout was growing, which is also very unusual. So to see the beauty in how enlikesh, we are enlikesh, we are one with the flowers when we communicate with them and speak to them, asking them to heal us, and we in return heal them through enlikesh. Life supports life.
Absolutely. And that was my point. You just made my point very adequately, in the idea that enlikesh is oneness, and it releases, being one automatically releases the suffering of separation, which is what we all experience. And then veritas is the truth of the oneness that recognizes we are not separate. So enlikesh and veritas. It was an excellent experience. It was wonderful having you speak about the flowers today, and it leads right into the rest of our discussion with the divine feminine and about the consciousness of other living aspects. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll stay with us, and if you'd like to comment later on what we talk about next.
Absolutely. It is with honor, respect, and gratitude. Thank you, Laota and Tavares. This experience is, I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
Wonderful. So everyone, hold on to that gratitude, and we will be right back after this brief break. In enlikesh and veritas, honor and respect.
DNA clearing bath, black Hawaiian lava salt. I am the one that brings forth power, protection, and purification of the luminous field. I help to bring one into their own power through the fiery transmutation of darkness into something greater and elevated within its infinite potential. I accomplish this through the purifying process of fire, tetrahedron, uprooting impurities with volcanic explosive force to remove toxins out of the luminous field. This force cascades, flowing through the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. I help absorb and extract out of your luminous field that which has been hidden and secretly exerting an influence of control and stripping your power. I bring forth this information with clarity into the conscious awareness of the individual through the desire of the individual to be purified of what has negatively exerted power over them in secrecy. Submerging your physical body with me via salt bath will allow for greater integration of my magic into your cellular matrix to aid and protect you from dark influences as you move through time and space. My protection magic runs throughout the day. Use your guidance to calculate the levels of integration within your field and carry me with you through the day to anchor me in for an added layer of protection. My protection magic may be called upon and activated when needed. Within me lies potentiality and abundance to experience all, aiding the consciousness to pull forth the possibilities of what can be through your desire and will to be free of that which secretly diverts you into unwanted trajectories. Use me to call forth that which you desire to make manifest into your physical reality. I help to remove the fears that have been hidden and held secret in your field, helping one to see positive trajectories and potentialities through my absorption power. In Lakesh and Veritas.
In Lakesh and Veritas. Welcome back. And you can see we held on to our gratitude and happiness and joy. So we're continuing to pick up where we left off. We just finished speaking about the consciousness of flowers. Thank you again, Lauren, for bringing this forth. And for anyone who's interested in botanical floral arrangements, Lauren's info will be in the description. You can check her out, her Instagram page as well, and phone number. So, Lelta, I understand you want to bring us deeper into the divine feminine today.
Yes, I want to start with this idea of consciousness, that in our current experience, we are not of the understanding that everything is conscious. And we are often discouraged from acknowledging the consciousness of each thing. But the earth itself is conscious, as we are conscious, as our bodies are conscious. The earth is aware, as we are aware. The earth is aware of pain and suffering, the pain and suffering that those who live upon her back feel, and the ones who live upon her back inflict on her. Our bodies are conscious and they're aware of pain and suffering. We often behave as if they do not. We are actually directly, physically made from the elements of the earth. We're in a closed system here on this planet. Everything, there's nothing that comes in of other elements that makes our bodies up. Everything is made from the elements of the earth. And we all understand that intellectually, but we don't bring forward the fact that we are actually of the elements. We are birthed from the mother earth, from the minerals that are in our body. We are fed from the food that the mother produces. The food of the earth is our mother's milk and everybody else's mother's milk who lives on this planet. We should consider, are we worthy of our mother's milk?
Oh.
And there's a little comments from the background.
Yeah, Valerie. I have some thoughts on that. But
and we need to recognize that the natural order of thing, in the natural way, the level of intelligence that the divinity that created this system and that set it into motion, that made us each appear from its beneficence, is not replicatable by mankind. And this is quite clear. And we have a long history of things that men have done to the earth that would give us the clarity. And there's nowhere that we cannot look and see the evidence of what mankind has done. But let us just look at the concept of genetically modified organisms that have tremendous side effects. And they have been in our systems now for many decades. In the American Food and Drug Association approved them in the 1980s. And these things have caused allergic responses. Our children are very allergic in this time, many generations after it. They have many undesired side effects, such as toxicity and organ damage or gene transfer that's linked to birth defects in animals and amphibians. There's cancer and endocrine system disruptions and damage to the DNA, damage to the reproductive systems in all mammals. And we can see, as we are mammals, that there is damage to what has happened to us in the because of the system of what is being eaten as we are what we eat. Genetically modified corn is 90% of all corn that is planted. And this is a part of this genetically modified organisms, are part of a long-term program with the intent to remove all obstacles to buying up farmland and capturing the food market. So we can see that many of the promoters of genetically modified food, as it devastated small farmers and traveled all over the world, infecting crops, and the legal system supported that the small farmers could not fight the outreaching of the genetically modified food, and many farmers were driven to suicide, especially in India and other countries. That family farmers were devastated worldwide, leaving us with a landscape of havoc and in subtraction to what was our highest and in our best interests in the natural order of things from the land itself, from the seeds which had been sterilized through the genetically modified process, and in the process of animating us through proper nutrition. So we were left with a landscape where we are now, leaving humanity malnourished and our relationship with the land broken. So when we spoke about the flowers are part of that experience, all of the flowers are also genetically modified, unless you go out of your way to research and find how to get annuals and perennials that are not genetically modified. So this is relevant to the earlier part of the class. There has been no reverence and no respect or gratitude given to the land, and so no repair has been done. What I understand is that the damage is done. It will not heal itself. However, with human assistance, this could be rectified. But it's not the only situation of the difference between what Mother Nature or the natural order produces, which is beautiful flowers and food we can eat, and man produces GMOs and death and destruction in its wake. We can even look at what has happened to women. We can look at Barbie dolls, for instance. Barbie dolls entered our landscape 60 years ago, and after 3 generations, we see all kinds of issues with bulimia and anorexia because of the introduction of this unnatural female representation. If Barbie were a real person, and there is a real person you can Google who has made herself a true Barbie doll, who's had hundreds of operations to be, and the desire to be an actual Barbie doll, and is Barbie, if she were an actual woman, she would be 5'9". She would have a bust of 39 inches and a waist of 18 inches. She would have hips that were 33 inches, and she'd wear a size 3 shoe. And everybody, including our computers, wants to comment on that. A size 3 shoe. She would weigh 110 pounds at 5'9". And I am 5'9", and I am here to tell you that my skeleton weighs more than 110 pounds. So that's a very interesting thing. So Barbie's body mass index would be 16.24. And that would be the perfect criteria for anorexia. Barbie was given to our children who were influenced by what she represented and their desire to be extremely thin. And this is what they considered outer beauty. The Alliance for Eating Disorders has reported that 70 million people worldwide suffer from eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia. And about 90% of those eating disorders are in young women starting at the age of 12 to 25. In the survey they took, these women said they would rather be hit by a truck than gain weight. This is an imbalance in the thinking of the last 3 generations of women who have been exposed to this ideal as an achievable idea, this extreme, unhealthy obsession with an unobtainable body image that is not in accord with the natural order of anything, emotionally, mentally, or physically? Or does it take into effect, into account that every culture and different people from different places, based on their heritage and lineage, don't look like Barbie? And it is not a desirable desire. It exasperates low self-esteem and this feeling of despicable me. It's interesting that we have a movie for children called Despicable Me because of many reasons that we litter our media landscape with negative concepts for our children to subliminally get, but also these unobtainable self-images and goals that really steal the truth of who we are and replace it with something illusionary, which leaves us with 3 generations of girls deeply damaged and suffering a feminine psyche, that something is wrong with them, that they are not the ideal, that they are needing to do something that's impossible to obtain or maintain. So our landscape is full now of land that cannot produce food that nourishes us. We have farms that are not able to produce anything because they've been poisoned by GMOs. We have people greedily buying up all of the available farmland so that they can have a handle on feeding the entire world, and it has not occurred to anyone to stop them. There's no laws that stop a monopoly on buying up every bit of land, all good usable land, so that they can monopolize the food world market after they have destroyed the land and make inferior food from mankind instead of the divine and natural order of the earth. Mankind also really likes to be illustrated. So we have 120 million people in the Western Hemisphere who have illustrated themselves. That means that they have tattoo ink inside of them. It is classified as a cosmetic, and it is injected into the living tissue. There is no industry standard. For the ink ingredients. Some may contain organic pigments, or they may contain preservatives, contaminants like nickel or arsenic and lead. Those who have this done. They are warned that if they have skin conditions, don't do it, that it's contraindicated for those who are pregnant and breastfeeding, or severe autoimmune suppression, or tumors, or scars, or even keloid. My rule of thumb is if a pregnant woman can't have it, I can't have it because somebody was pregnant with me once. So that's how I look at it. So if you have these things, some of the decisions we make in our youth or haste are lasting. And so there is a great deal of unidentified, unregulated ink, and the willingness to endure the risk and the pain so that we may be illustrated, so that we may publish ourselves as our own message on our own bodies is, yes, I heard that.
Yes. Yes. Well, if I may
It is
interject,
problematic.
I have an experience, if I may share with that,
Yeah.
firsthand. I do have a tattoo, and I was 30. I gifted myself. I never was interested in it, but all of a sudden, in my 30th birthday, I said, I'm going to gift myself with a tattoo, and of a flower. So I had it all situated. I went to the tattoo place, and it was, I'd researched where to go, making sure what I thought was right. And I did, and I started the tattoo. I needed to have more than one session. And so I have a tattoo on my body. I became pregnant in between the sessions, and I never finished the tattoo. One of the main reasons was my body was telling me, stop, this is not right. And after the first session, my tattoo artist had even said, your body is rejecting the ink. Your body is rejecting the ink. The tattoo's not staying. It's not holding. I'm going to have to redo it. Yes. And it was the universe telling me everything you just said. Everything you just said. Hello. There it is. And it makes so much sense. Why would I be illustrating my body in untruth when the truth is right in front of me?
This is, of course, something that's very popular, as eating processed food is very popular, as playing with Barbie dolls is very popular, tattoos are very popular, but it doesn't change the truth of it. The truth of it is that you could keloid, but more importantly, you can poison yourself. You could create, if you have underlying conditions, you could really get yourself in a situation. They don't yet medically and scientifically know whether the ink goes into body organs. They do know that it stays forever. They don't know where exactly it goes, but it's not hard to figure out that it gets distributed depending on what its components that break down are. And since much of the ink is still for industrial use, it's not regulated for human use, there's just no telling. And how would you know if the person told you, oh yeah, this is organic, and what else do you want it to be?
Vegan, soy free.
Yeah, it's good for you.
I see. All the frees.
Truth.
However, the bigger idea and the bigger discussion we're having is, one, these things are never done with the consideration that the body is conscious, that the body knows how you treat it and how you think of it. The body's not a coloring book. The body hurts and it's inflicted with pain, and the body feels your disdain and despicable for yourself when you inflict pain on it and poison it. This is as Tavares taught me, the die slow. This is the form of self-sabotage and irreverence, the disrespect, the lack of gratitude to the living organism in the same way that we feel about Mother Earth. We disregard, we don't feel that there's consciousness there. Because she doesn't yell ouch, you continue to cut all the trees down in the rainforest. Because the farmland didn't rise up and smother you with dirt. you feel that it's okay to destroy the seeds to sterilize them. So this is a bigger idea. So I'm not saying this conversation is about what our behavior has left us in the wake of. Yes, Tavares, you have something.
Yes, it has left us in the wake of a plastic world, artificial, that is against the law, the universal law, which I'm going to back up a little bit to what you were speaking on earlier about the GMOs and uh, literally everything that you were saying, whether it's about the cosmetic augmentations to the body, the perception, and the incorrect standards that women and both men are living up to, as well as what's taking place with the food. This is all breaking universal law, but specifically with the food, I was seeing how this is breaking the universal law of rhythm. And with the GMO seeds that they're sterile from what I understand. And this is a major issue because everything within life goes through these cycles. It has these rhythms, seasons, summer, winter, astrological cycles, stages of development, patterns. Everything flows in and out, you know. So this idea of what we see in nature, we have a cycle of the seed and then the stages of development of the seed bearing the vegetable, let's say spaghetti squash. It's an inside joke. Spaghetti squash. And then this vegetable can be used to nourish us. And then we have seeds inside of this squash, or the mother's milk, you know, as Lao Tzu mentioned, nourishing us. So then in our gratitude, we can continue the cycle and place those seeds right back into Mother Earth to keep the cycle going. So we are within the law. We are taking, but we are giving back. We are grateful. You know, this cycle ceases to exist when we introduce something like GMO, when we sterilize the seeds and, as Lao Tzu mentioned, create a monopoly on farming that prevents others from living and upholding the law. And so this is a major thing, and I can, even though I'm using the example of the GMO, I can see how this transcends and crosses and many of the examples that Lao Tzu has given in terms of us breaking the universal law and even the not acknowledging the intelligence of the body or the consciousness of the body as well.
Thank you. This is a topic I'm sure we will continue to discuss because it's a very large topic. And the global landscape is very interesting. Now, you mentioned cosmetic augmentations, and that was my next area because cosmetic augmentations, like not only the idea of there's a person who's undergone surgeries to become a plastic doll, there's a emotional and mental component here that is not in balance. But that not in balance is in varying degrees in many other areas. So cosmetic augmentations only exacerbate when somebody gets a facelift or when they have something done that is unnecessary. It exasperates self-loathing and fosters addictions. How many times have you heard that Michael Jackson had 45 surgeries, or that someone who's having augmentations continuously goes back because nothing was solved. Whatever they saw in the mirror is still in the mirror because it didn't get solved, because it's not in the mirror. It is a reflection of what they think of themselves. Yes. And so this is very significant and important that we really have the proper respect for self, and that we consider, and I've been teaching this for many years, we consider that when we look in the mirror at our bodies, that the body is an independent and separate life form that is conscious and is aware. And so when you look in the mirror and you think, oh, one ear is lower than the other, or I have a mole on this place or that place, and you do that with the idea of anything less than gratitude to have a face, then you are imprinting not only the reflection in the mirror, but you're imprinting yourself with negative thoughts that now the body that has been assigned to you, that obeys you, now you feel that you can think negative thoughts about it constantly. You can think, well, I don't like my hair today. I don't like my nose. I should have it broken and reset. I should have my cheekbones removed. Um, I should paralyze my frown lines. I know, I'll do that. I'll paralyze my frown line. This is what cosmetic augmentation does. And it lets us not consider that the living, breathing organism that is the best thing a human could ever have, and you don't even have the manual on how it works, that you feel so willing to torment it, to make it hurt, to unnecessarily cut or poison it, or to change it, or to put effects on it. You know, instead of changing how fat or thin your face is, why not change what you eat or what you think? And then that would be you taking control of your own experience, when in fact, the relationship with the body is a cooperative experience. So rearranging your physicality not only breaks the law of nature, which is set, but it also, you know, if you come in and the way, whatever your ethnicity is or whatever your generational uniquenesses are, this is what was set for you in this lifetime. So for you to want to rearrange it, cover it up, or pretend it doesn't exist would be you, looks like a remedial class coming up for you. Looks like you will have another experience.
Coming back on the short bus, as you say. Reincarnation.
The idea that you're so offended by your frown lines that you are willing to put Botox, which is by definition poison, to paralyze the muscles in your body, as if you weren't paralyzing a conscious living entity. You are. But you do it because it's too much trouble to stop thinking the thoughts that make your brow frown. So you'd rather paralyze another living consciousness. We're not thinking about things that way. We're not addressing how it feels mentally and emotionally, and how satisfying it would be if we would take the longer path to a cleaner, clearer, more elevated solution than just doing whatever mankind has come up with today. So many people are reforming their breast, and they're having all kinds of butt lifts and things like that. And the fashion has already changed. I read today that the big butt lifts that were popular for the last 5 years are no longer in fashion. Now, the new butt lifts are much smaller and shapely, is what the article said. So if you have, over the last 5 years, made an augmentation and an adjustment, and now you're suddenly out of fashion. And by the way, the butt lifts are the most dangerous of all surgeries, and more catastrophic events have happened with those. So you wouldn't want to just go do it in. So, you know, it's kind of like the illustrated aspect. It seems like a good idea maybe at 15 to do something like that, but at 45, it may not feel like the same idea. Augmentation is against the law. Beautification is another matter. So what we are seeing is, in all of the world, there are 7 countries that are the most popular for surgeries. And South Korea for nose jobs and for lip jobs. Greece for breast augmentations. Italy for Botox and liposuction, which removes fat from the thighs. Brazil for breast implants and butt lifts. Colombia for liposuction, removing fat from the thighs. The US for, hits the trifecta. It gets liposuction, breast augmentation, and buttocks implants and augmentations. That's the trifecta. And then Taiwan for wrinkle treatments and Botox. So this is not to say that we should not be beautiful, but it is to say that to cut some of these surgeries, we take 2 or 3 weeks and are extremely painful to recover from, and people are willingly submitting to hiring a person to commit negative things, to take a knife and to cut them open and to rearrange them for whatever the fashion of the moment is, so that they can impress whoever it is that will look at them. This is not balance. This is imbalance. It is no different than what has happened on the planet to the earth itself. It is in fashion to have cattle on land, so we cut down a rainforest. We litter our world with plastic. The contrast is important for us to recognize as we treat or allow ourselves to treat our children, our girl children, our women, and men are also involved in this. Men are increasingly getting augmentations because there are bias, especially in certain industries like Silicon Valley, there are bias about aging. So men are having surgeries done as well. But all of this leads to the despicable me syndrome. This is no different than what we see with teenage girls cutting. We see people cutting, there's a psychological circumstance where girls are cutting themselves. This is no different. So you just have enough money to hire someone to cut you instead and rearrange you. It's masochistic at the very least. And the self-hatred for the feminine in general applies to the earth as well. So we will continue more discussions about this, but these are the things that I wanted to mention today as important to be expressed. That we are, I made a note to myself that we're much harder to kill than we would think we would be. We do a lot of things to ourselves and we're still semi here. We stuff ourselves with silicone and artificial substances. We cut ourselves open and stuff things in. We give ourselves painkillers. We give ourselves sleep potions and poison at night. We stay on medications that are addictive and that don't really help us, but are psychological crutches. We endure great discomfort and pain from our own will. There is so much suffering. And then we overlay that onto Mother Earth, onto the planet, and make it impossible for it to nourish us. And these things are quite addictive because they never really solve the problem. And culturally, we're not addressing it. We're saying, okay, if that's what you want to do, but it's not okay for children to see it. It's not okay for little children to see, little boys to see that mothers hate themselves, or that little girls to see and learn that that's what they're to do. The fact that children are saying, I'd rather be hit by a truck than gain weight is a catastrophic issue. So these things are really important for us to know. There are many other examples of things that happen, but in general, participants who have cosmetic surgery often have a history of poor mental health, including more depression and anxiety, of illicit drug use, of eating disorders, and more alcohol and self-harm and suicide attempts. Surgery does not boost the general satisfaction with their appearance. It only makes them hungry to continue the process of self-mutilation. So we want to bring this to your attention so that we can see the contrast. There is much more for me to say, and I look forward to having further talks. However, do either of you have comments about what has been said?
Yes, I'll briefly share that listening to what you have shared, it brings me back to this idea of the law and living within the truth, but primarily the acknowledgement of consciousness in all things, starting at the very top of the podcast with the flowers. And I'm seeing how the augmentations and the self-hate, all from just not knowing law or operating, or even the idea of clearing, releasing these emotions that are stored within us and seeking outside solutions instead of taking care of them inwardly. It was kind of funny, the bit that you shared about Michael Jackson and his many surgeries, and then you mentioned this idea of the mirror. I'm like, didn't he release a song, Man in the Mirror? I don't think he was listening to himself. I think it was a little deeper. Reach deeper, Mike. But again, it's just evident. If we were to do the inner work, if we were to adhere to the laws and the truth, it can change the game. And then, of course, share this with our offspring to replicate the behavior. This can be corrected. So that's what I gather.
Do you have anything, Lauren?
Absolutely, yes. After listening to everything you just enlightened us with, what keeps coming forward is the truth in how disconnected we are with the body, with the earth, with ourselves, and how, as it was shared, we are all created in divinity. We are divine by design. To reconnect, correct, respect, all those wonderful things. That's how we will change, bringing forward the balance that is needed. The divine feminine is so willing to help and assist us with. This will help push everything back into alignment.
Absolutely. The idea that this has been an architectural design of disaster, from removing the foods where people can have access to healthy food, where they can eat a watermelon, save the seed, and then if you don't have a job, you could still grow another watermelon. You could let the rain, put it in the earth and let the rain on it, and you'd have a watermelon you could eat off the land. But removing the ability for us to eat off the land, removing the ability for us to be nourished so our brains will work properly, and then allowing the marketplace to be filled with plastic replicas that now become the ideal. And 3 generations in, we have grandmothers, mothers, and children still allowed to have easy access to these dangerous images that have become part of our landscape. And then, of course, all of the other augmentations and available things that the cosmetic industry, along with science and medical, has not made impossible for us to get. So some things should not be available, to be injected into our bodies. Some things should be public health issues. And the divine feminine, the bigger takeaway from this should be that how we treat the earth is how we treat women. The contrast is very clear that what happens with the earth, what happens with women is what has happened to us. And that we are sending out the clarion call for the return of the divine feminine. I encourage everyone who hears this to call for the power of the divine feminine to come back into our world, so that we may be nourished, so that we may be balanced, and so that we may be beautiful. And we thank you. In Lakesh and Veritas.
And Lakesh and Veritas.